Mackenzie.
Lamar.
It's bullet train time. We're going to not move dialogue wise at 200 miles per hour today, but we'll try to keep up. So, getting things kicked off real quick. What is your favorite this genre of movie? And I say this genre because I don't know that they all have the same exact requirements, and I'm sure there's intermingling. I couldn't find a real name for this, and I'm sure some people out there like other movies that we're not going to list. But anyway, let me give you some descriptors for what I consider this genre of film. So, you need zany characters. You need multiple storylines, preferably non-linear storylines as well, where you're sort of backtracking, going forward in time, interweaving. You need a really tight script with things like callbacks and foreshadowing. You need well-balanced humor and action. And then at the end of all of it, and I think this might be the toughest one and where a lot of movies get disqualified with all those other things, you got to have stakes. There still have to be risks of death or loss or something. You can't just be a pure action comedy. There's got to be some stakes in there. So all of that I just threw at you, we're on a bullet train. What is your favorite of this genre of film?
My favorite thing is that we don't really know what this is. We even tried to look into this before. There's a couple terms you guys might find interesting. What did we say? Hyperlink? Hyperlink,
You
I
said
think is
hyperlinked, and then
hyperlinked
neo-noir is what came up.
neo-noir. Yeah, we don't really know what this is the point. But it's very specific. There's some very specific requirements to this. And I think I have a couple, and again, with the very specific requirements, not entirely sure that these would count, but I think Seven Psychopaths is a great one like this. That is one of, especially in terms of the script. Like, I just think that is written so well and so clever and so many callbacks. And like, the characters are certainly zany. Like, there's crazy people in this cast.
There's a lot of overlap between this and Seven Psychopaths. Not really plot wise, but the way that they go about telling the different characters' stories. I feel like there's a lot of that overlap, the cutaways to their backstories.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I also think that Kiss Kiss Bang Bang sort of counts. Like, it's not quite as actiony as this is. There's certainly some action, but it probably needs more action to fully count. But I feel like that's another one that has a similar, like, there's all these different, it definitely is the noir piece of that, of like, if it's neo-noir, it has that
it's got the
neo-noir
detective component, which we may or may not be doing soon. We'll keep you guys posted.
Maybe not, we'll see. What about you? What's yours? You luckily had some examples in mind to help me think of this.
I wanted to
what
get
was your final
your brain rolling on this. It's hard to not go back, and if you want to include Pulp Fiction in this as far as one of the early versions of, hey, let's tell some non-linear stories where we're kind of going back and forth. There's definitely zany, fleshed out characters across the board. So it's hard not to talk about Pulp Fiction, but I would actually go forward a few years to one that we've talked about before and that we need to do at some point on the pod, and that's Snatch by Guy Ritchie. I think he took what Tarantino did, capitalized on it, but put his own British spin on it. I think you actually see more of the elements from a film like Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels in Bullet Train compared to something like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think like it just has it just has a different style to it, and it does have a little bit more of that. I don't know, like style is the word I would say. Like the aesthetic, the style, the way that it's shot is a little bit different than a Tarantino, but it's
not as like vibe. Grimy or gritty.
Yeah, it's not as
it's very light, and like, again, the script and the reaction as an audience member watching it, it's a balance of levity, and you're laughing throughout a lot of both films, but again, you still have to have stakes.
Yeah.
So there are people that die in both, and that's
shit's
just
about
the way
to go
it goes down
in all of them. Yeah. Well, all that to say, let's get on a bullet train, huh?
Let's talk Aaron Taylor Johnson. I cannot wait.
Oh my God.
Good looking man.
You're telling me. Let's go. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lamar.
And we are in our final installment of Action April. And we are closing things out with an unintentional double director move, but whatever, it happens. We're going to be talking about Bullet Train.
Yeah, and we hope you guys you listened to last week's and enjoyed the episode with Prime Cut Podcast where we did Atomic Blonde, and we
Mm-hmm.
ported that into our feed. It still counts as one of our episodes, even though it's theirs.
It totally counts. It was
Yeah.
planned. I mean, we kind of like the stars aligned. So yeah, check it out there. Check it out here. It was a good time, but it's also same director. And yeah, it just so happened that they wanted to cover that, and it kind of coincided with this month, and we wanted to cover this, which we think is, or I think I should say, a great time, a fun watch. But before we get into all that, what are we drinking?
Well, what else are we going to be drinking today but Bullet Bourbon? Get it? It's spelled different, though. Anyway, so you're going to take 2 ounces of that, or your favorite bourbon, doesn't have to be Bullet, half an ounce of limoncello, half an ounce of Aperol, 3/4 ounces of lemon juice, and half an ounce of simple syrup. Shake and strain that sucker into a rocks glass with a big rock of ice. You can also choose to smoke this if you have a smoking kit. And Skylar at Craft World, as always, recommended smoked sea salt, and then put a rim on this that looks like some charcoal, because guess what? We are calling this the diesel.
The diesel. I was like so excited about this one. So cheers.
Cheers.
A little behind the scenes for y'all. We were trying to decide this. There were a bunch of names that we threw out back and forth, and one of them was, of course, Diesel. And I just in all caps to everybody was like, Diesel. Like, we can't not name it the Diesel. I feel like.
And if you think that having a drink called the Diesel and it has limoncello in it, and you think, oh, that doesn't make sense, you should watch this fucking movie, because it very much makes sense that this has limoncello, something very sweet in it.
Yes, very sweet. So enjoy that. It's pretty tasty. I wish I had smoked it though. I feel like that would have added a layer. So y'all make it. Let us know how it is. So we are talking about, like we said, Bullet Train 2022. Not that old. This is rounding out our decades of our action flicks, and it did pretty well. This one, it's 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb. 53% for critics on Rotten Tomatoes. So like they weren't huge fans. Technically, y'all, if you didn't know, that's a splat. So it's not great. But the audiences loved it again. 76% from audiences.
This was a very word of mouth film.
Yeah.
I had no intention of seeing it because the initial reviews were bad. And then maybe one of my friends saw it and told me specifically it was so much better than I expected it to be. Like, go in with tempered expectations, you'll really enjoy it. And at this point, I've watched the movie 4 times. It's not perfect, which we'll get to, but it's really fucking fun.
I think I have also seen it 4 times, like 4 or 5 times. And it's, again, 2022, y'all. It's not that old. Yeah. So very watchable, I would say.
For sure.
But same thing, like I didn't see it right away. It took a minute to watch it, and then just went in with low expectations of, I haven't heard great things, but I haven't heard terrible things. Let's watch it. And it was a fun time. If you go in like, I'm just gonna watch a fun action movie, and there it was.
I would put it above a lot of the mindless summer blockbusters that get pumped out the last couple years, whether it's Marvel movies or Fast and Furious or Godzilla, like those kind of movies where you're just turning your brain off and watching it. I would put this above almost all of those, I think.
Yeah, because it's just like quietly funny, you know what I mean? Like, and it's got like you said, it's got a tight script. It's very well rounded, so there's a lot of things about it I think that it has going for it, certainly. So we're going to go through some details as quick as we can, but this is a big cast actually. So a lot of people to cover, but as we said, director David Leitch, we've talked about several times on the pod, so we don't need to belabor the point in his films. Fall Guy, Atomic Blonde, like we just said, some of those.
So worth double tapping on the Brad Pitt stunt double of it all. That is a crazy career track.
It is a crazy career track. And I think like he's worked with him several times now, both as a stunt double and not. So I think that they just have a really solid collaboration. I think it's really cool that it's kind of evolved into this.
I encourage you guys that are my age. Mackenzie's a little younger, but if the late 90s, early aughts action scene, basically David Leitch stunted in every single film you've seen, whether it's Blade or 300 or Ocean's 11 with Brad Pitt. Like, he has done all of that, and so to see him writing and making movies now is pretty fucking cool.
I've seen all of those, by the way, and then some. So
I didn't want to say same age as us. That's the only reason I specified it. Same age as me. Yeah.
Yes, it's those are some of the best ones. I mean, that's like just there is something about some of those 90s action movies that are so fun, so well
Yeah.
done, and early 2000s and all those. So anyway, yes, they were a really great collab then. They're a really great collab now. So it's a fun watch, certainly. The screenplay was done here by Zach Olkowitz, and he hasn't done a ton that most people would know. This is really first like big feature film. He did Fear Street Part 2, which is a little bit
It was
recent.
fine. I liked the
Yeah, I didn't
first
see
one
it.
better, but the second one was like a throwback 80s slasher with kind of a meta twist. It was all right.
Nice. And the source material for this one is Kotaro Isaka. I hope I got that right.
You're really getting all the fun names
I
today.
am. I am. I tried. But he wrote the source material, which is a novel, actually, and it is Maria Beetle in Japanese, but that's not, it doesn't mean the same thing. That's how it's been translated. So, funnily enough, we have a character named Maria Beetle in here as an homage to the novel. I haven't read it. But I was reading about the book, and there are quite a few differences, including like some of the if not all of the main characters are white in this version. It obviously takes place in Japan, and there's a lot of Japanese characters, but I just want to call out at the top that there were accusations of Hollywood whitewashing when recasting some of these characters to be white characters rather than Japanese characters. And he said he thought that was laughable because the story is fiction, and and none of these people are real, and maybe they're not even Japanese in the book. So
And yeah, also all of the backstories of the characters are tied into where they're coming from. Like we don't have to get into major spoilers, but it's like the wolf
yeah,
is he Mexican? Is that, or I can't tell
he's
where he's supposed to be from.
he's supposed to be
Chilean?
Mexican, but I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, anyways, there were a lot of feelings on all
Yeah.
sides, but I'm just sharing his take.
If you
It's
want to
his source
be
material.
angry. You can post about it on the internet.
And you
Just
can
have a
be
great
angry
time.
at him because he thought it was fine. I don't know. Anyway, we're just representing all sides. You're welcome. Getting into major cast and crew here. Obviously, Brad Pitt, as we said, plays Ladybug, one of my favorite character names that he's had probably ever, but certainly in this film, it's a fun one. They all have great names, but that's a fun one.
And I love that they work it into like the story
Yeah.
itself, like the explanation of it later.
And there's like
sense.
there's some symbolism to the ladybug throughout, and I love that it gets referenced so many times. So
yeah, I feel like we've covered Brad Pitt multiple times already, right?
I'm not sure that I need to give an example of his.
I was gonna say, I know that we've covered Brad Pitt before, so we're not gonna run down the same filmography, but you guys know what movies he's been in. He's been in everything.
I think you know a couple.
So instead of rather than digging into more of his films, I thought it would be cool to bring a new fun fact about Brad that you guys might not know, and that is he owns the rights to Infernal Affairs, which was the Hong Kong film that eventually became The Departed in the American remake. So he bought the rights to that film because he loved it so much, and he thought, oh, I'm going to get with my buddy Tom Cruise, and we're going to eventually make an Americanized version of this. I cannot picture the two of them doing it, but couldn't get it off the ground. Schedules didn't sync up. Eventually he was like, fuck it, let's just make it. So he ended up producing The Departed, Leo Scorsese directing, Matt Damon, and became one of my favorite movies the first time I saw it. So it's kind of cool that Brad Pitt is listed as a producer, but I didn't know that was why. He owns the rights to the original.
Yeah, and that he wanted to do it in the first place. I agree with you though. Like, how do you could not picture it any other way at this point, but him and Tom Cruise instead, you know what I mean? Like, of all the choices.
Snidely Whiplash, Tom Cruise, like him playing the Matt Damon character would actually be like him doing his evil laugh would be kind of fun with his big teeth. Like I could kind of picture that one, but
oh, I love it. Well, no, that's fine. He produces a lot. I mean, I think it's kind of overlooked a bit how much he is producing in Hollywood. More than he's acting almost. Like, I think the most recent thing I know of him in is The Wolves after this with George Clooney. And he hasn't done a lot than that, but he's been producing a lot of things. So yeah, that's really cool. So we were like, we're going to skip right over Brad Pitt and then we're going to talk about him for 10 minutes. All right. Joey King plays Prince, which is, that is a very gender non-specific name throughout. That is a actress playing a female character named the Prince. Just clarifying.
Yeah. Well, they wanted a boy, to be fair.
They wanted a boy, to be fair. She's
Isn't that kind of fucked up? They didn't change her name. They were like, we wanted a boy, so now this is your name.
You're just the Prince. Just deal with it. And then you're still not a part of my plans. Anyway, she's been in a few things, a lot of things I have not seen. The only thing I've seen of hers is A Family Affair, which is actually kind of recent. It's on Netflix. It's cute. It's funny. And then a series recently that some people have raved about. I haven't seen it. We Were the Lucky Ones. So.
Oh, I thought you were going to say The Act. I remember her in that. And that might not have aged well, because I know now that the girl, I can't remember, Gypsy Rose, it's like a true story. And her version just came out recently. So I don't know if the one that Joey
Gypsy
King
Rose, the
in,
one that murdered her mom?
Yes. So they made the show with Joey King starring as Gypsy Rose, like, I want to say 6-7 years ago. But now I think perceptions have changed and maybe stories have changed, because now I feel like they just put out something that puts her in a more positive light. So maybe that series.
There's definitely Gypsy Rose has had some real PR work done for her.
Okay.
I don't get it personally. She still murdered her mom, but we're all.
It turns out I didn't kill my mom. It was just an elaborate magic trick. Come on out, Mom. I don't know. I'm just gonna do it.
I don't know. I don't know what the spin has been, but it's been working in her favor. That's for sure. So, well, we'll have to check that one out and see if it ages, I suppose. But then, as you said at the top, person we all want to spend a lot of time talking about, Mr. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Tangerine. That man, he is just a beautiful man. Like, he is just a pleasure to look at. But he's also just gives an incredible performance too. I mean, it's just a fun time, fun role for him. He's been in a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of, like, not main lead kind of characters, but a lot of supporting, but like first supporting actor kind of thing. He recently was in Nosferatu, and I couldn't remember if did you see that?
Yes, I enjoyed Nosferatu.
Okay. Yeah, so he was in that, and he played a pretty pivotal role. He was
second cast to Godzilla in the 2012 Godzilla. So number 1 on the IMDb is Godzilla. Right under that, Aaron Taylor Johnson. So good for him.
Good job, Aaron Taylor Johnson. And yeah, I agree. But he also was in The Fall Guy, which checks out, like, same director again. And then he also did a couple others that people know him for, Kick-Ass and Nocturnal Animals. I don't know that many people know him for that. That's a weird one if you haven't seen it.
I saw that, and I don't remember him being in it. So
yeah, he's kind of he's not like the main character, but he's interesting.
And then I also had to watch Kraven the Hunter.
I haven't watched it because it looks terrible. He looks beautiful, but it looks terrible.
I didn't see Morbius or Madam Web, but I can assume this is maybe
like
not similar, as bad, because I had fun watching it, because I was laughing at how terrible it wasn't. This kind of fun. It was just like, that is such bad CGI. Oh my God, who wrote this dialogue? What the fuck is Russell Crowe doing here? Lots of questions, but we had to watch it because we went to a recording for How Did This Get Made podcast. And so they did a live recording at the Moody Center, and that was the movie they were doing. So we had to watch it a few days in advance to be able to laugh along.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had no intention of ever watching that. I saw that he was on it, and I was like, I want to support you, my guy. I do, but this looks so bad. But this he's great in. And Brian Tyree Henry plays his twin, Lemon. He's done a bunch of stuff. So a lot of it like TV and voiceover work, but including Into the Spider-Verse. But
I didn't know that was him.
Yeah, but he was also in Eternals. If you're trying to like picture him, he was in Eternals. And then Andrew Koji plays Kumura, and he hasn't done a lot of things. He did Fast and Furious 6, which is what I think a lot of people would know, and then Boy Kills World, which I just had to share because of the title. I haven't seen it, but I was like, we're riffing on Boy Meets World now with Boy Kills World. It's getting dark in here. One of the
Skarsgårds was in that. I did not see it.
Oh, well, if a Skarsgård's in it, then it's probably good, you know.
Skarsgård, yeah.
Hiroyuki Sanada plays the Elder. Shogun is something that got just like blown up in the last few months. I have not watched it yet, but it's supposed to be incredible, and he's the lead in
Won
that.
a bunch
So
of Emmys.
won a
Yeah.
bunch of Emmys, like broke a bunch of records. It's supposed to be awesome, but it definitely like it came out at a time where it looked pretty heavy, and I was in the thick of like the Oscars stuff, I think, and I was like, I can't do any more heavy. But I want to see it. It's supposed to be really good. And he's done Mortal Kombat, and then was in John Wick 4, the final John Wick, in theory,
Yeah.
as they say. And then Michael Shannon, who plays the White Death. And we've talked about him before on the pod. He's done Shape of Water, Take Shelter, a bunch of other stuff. Man of Steel, plays a really good bad guy. You know,
I mark out for him every time we talk about him. You guys know I've loved him since Boardwalk Empire. I'm always fascinated by these actors that aren't, I don't know how I should put this. They don't typically look like Hollywood types. Because I feel like if you're in acting and you know you're really attractive, it's probably a lot easier to keep pressing on till you hit it big in some capacity. For the folks that are not tens, it's probably a little harder to keep going at times. So I'm always fascinated by these actors. But Michael Shannon, apparently, he's weird, not weird dude, but just unique, interesting hobbies. He apparently is in an REM cover band now. Like he fronts an REM, and they're touring nationally. They've done it 2 years in a row. So fucking good for you,
love
Michael
REM.
Shannon.
I haven't heard it, but I knew that he was in it, and I haven't listened yet. I'll have to check it out.
You say you love REM, but you haven't heard it?
I haven't
try listening to it. You'll really love it.
You're hilarious. I haven't heard his version. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me clarify. We'll see if he's any good. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I wanna check it out. Maybe we go to a show if they come to Austin. That could be fun.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, he's like, it's funny you say that too about being like traditionally handsome or attractive in Hollywood is you feel motivated to keep going and keep trying because you're like, I'm gonna break through some way. But I actually think it's more interesting for these like you said, unique looking people or atypical looking people. You become that character actor and you get a lot of work as a result. Like even heavy set, older looking, unique faces, weird features. Like these are things that make you stand out and you keep getting recast. So I think it's an interesting approach, certainly.
A Buscemi, if you will.
A Buscemi, if you will. Yes.
That's what we should call them. Buscemis.
Buscemis. But he's definitely one of them. He's a Buscemi for sure. And but he's such a good character actor. I will say he's really good at his job because for the first several films I saw him in, I just sort of hated him. I was like, God, this fucking guy is in this again. And he's always a bad guy, right? Like you're supposed to hate him a little bit. And then I was kind of like, I guess he's just doing a really good job.
Yeah. Sometimes being typecast can be a good thing. Gets you work.
Can be a good thing. We also have Miss Sandra Bullock. I don't know, arguably one of the nicest people in Hollywood by all accounts. She plays, again, based on the original source material novel, Maria Beadle. And the best handler there ever was, according to Brad Pitt's character. She really is holding his hand throughout this. I think it's really funny. Obviously, I think everybody knows Sandra Bullock and a bazillion of her credits, but I wanted to call out that she does The Lost City the same year that this comes out. And if you haven't seen it, it is pretty funny. It's the same thing. It's kind of like a mindless action flick, but it's pretty funny. It's unexpectedly funny, I guess I should say. I wasn't going to watch it originally, and I watched it, and I remember actually laughing quite a bit. But Brad Pitt and Channing Tatum are both in it. So it's like a little bit of a reunion. And it's fun fact, the book that Channing Tatum reads on the train in this film is the author from The Lost City author, which is what Sandra Bullock plays, her book. He's reading her book on this train, supposedly.
This is all in one universe. I can't wait for this. There's going to be an end game of Bullet Train.
They cameo in each other's shit. They have overlapping characters. Oh, and another one, The Water Bottle. The Water Bottle is in both films.
Holy shit. Okay. Maybe I do need to see this Lost
You do
City
need
movie.
to see it. It's funny. It's pretty funny. Anyway, also fun fact, it was originally supposed to be Lady Gaga. But I just feel like these worlds would not have come together this way if not. So I think it's nice. And closing us out, Mr. Benito A. Martinez Ocasio, or better known to many of you as Bad Bunny.
I made a face when you did that because I was looking at my list and I was like, who the fuck is she talking?
Who the fuck is that?
Okay.
Hey, that is his credited name. That is what he asked to be credited as. So we're going to call him that, but we also got to let you know it's Bad Bunny. And he plays the wolf. He hasn't been in a lot of films, but he has been in the Fast Saga because who hasn't apparently? He did F9, the Fast Saga. And he's in a new show that I haven't seen, but I did want to shout out because it looks very interesting. It's Cassandra. It's supposed to be on, I think it's Amazon Prime. And it's about the true story of a gay wrestler in Mexico who creates this character of Cassandra to like go to fame without, and overcomes a bunch of things to become this like famous wrestler despite the, homophobia and all the things that this community and country and all of that are rampant with. And he's supposed to be in that as well. And I'm really interested now to see it.
But that ties into two of the things I was going to mention, which is he's in Narcos Mexico. He has a very bit part in that. I don't know how many lines of dialogue he has. He's kind of just a henchman in the background for most of it. But to what you just said, he has 3 WWE wrestling matches under his belt. He has actually gone and wrestled in WWE. So I've watched him. He had a match in Puerto Rico, and the crowd was fucking ape shit for him.
Oh, I bet.
So Bad Bunny in Puerto Rico, big home court advantage.
Bad Bunny is like universally beloved. I mean, he's just kind of a good egg. I really like the guy, and he does a good job in this movie. Like, I think he's underrated. Also, when looking at his credits, you have to filter through 500 music videos to get to any of his other work. So he's had a lot of practice, and I guess it shows for sure. So, really quick plot summary before we keep going. 5 assassins aboard a swiftly moving bullet train find out that their missions have something in common.
Yeah.
Very simple. IMDb is all about like,
let me give you the
one-liner summary. We should rate. That should be a whole side quest of ours.
Summary of like, does it tell you enough to intrigue you without giving everything away like it did for Cabin in the fucking Woods?
Right?
Like,
that is one of my top 5 favorite pod moments. Like as I'm reading it, you guys' faces just like,
are we just going through the whole movie? Yeah.
Yeah, very succinct. I'll give it that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It's pretty recent, so we will give a spoiler warning before we give too much else away. But I will say it was a successful production. It was a $90 million budget, and it made almost $240 million. So
did any? I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but did the? And maybe this is an industry question of how budgets get determined, but did the fact that this had to go into production post-COVID actually drive the budget down? Because I think they ended up just doing everything on sound stages because this was the beginnings of COVID. Everyone's wearing protective equipment. You could only have so many people in one spot at a time. They were going to go shoot in Japan and on all these different locations because they had to do it on. Did that actually keep the budget down, or did that make things worse?
I think you trade one expenditure for the other, and that's just hypothesis from hearing
digital effects
other people. Right. Like you got to add in digital effects. You got to add in screens. You got to build the trains. You got to CGI stuff afterward. There's a ton of like special effects, digital work that has to be done. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer. I looked into the production information as well, and it kind of didn't say one way or the other, but I do know that it spoke to, we have to be tested every day. We have to have social distancing. We have to have screens. We have to, all these things. So I think you're adding another layer of complication that inevitably probably adds cost, but you are saving on some of the travel and some of the location stuff. But yeah, I definitely think that there were some COVID related factors. A lot of them mention it, of just how that impacted filming and how different a set it was as a result.
Yeah, this was, if you guys need a little fun thing to mention at your next party, this is the first movie that started production after COVID. It wasn't the first one to go back into production, but the first film that began production post-COVID. So, little fun fact.
Yeah. They were like, we got to get down to business. We got to get to work. It also, and I don't know how much of this contributes to it moving quickly into production, but this is 87 North Productions, which is the David Leitch, the director, and his wife's production company, Kelly McCormick. She's also a producer, but they've been together and worked together for many, many years, including on all the ones that we've talked about. And it's their production company. So it's really like them and their own liability and things like that. So I'm sure they were like, let's get to work. Like, let's figure it out, Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now's the time, kids. Turn around. Don't drown. It's spoiler time.
Sweet.
So many things. I have so many things. I will just start with I love this movie and I love stunts and I love action movies, and I have kind of learned this about myself over this month of like I
I
always knew
think our
that.
listeners have learned this about you over the last year and a
I
half.
know. This is
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, I don't know why it's new information for me, but it is. I mean, I've always knew I liked action, but I'm like, fuck, I just have like such a good time with these. These are just a good time. Like,
Yeah, it's a blast. I wrote down two things right off the bat. I like that we don't start with Brad Pitt's character. I like that the framing device is the man and his family. Like we start in
yeah.
the hospital, we establish that is going on, and Brad Pitt just happens to be somebody that gets
Yeah.
roped into all this other things that have no involvement with him really. So I like that right off the bat. And I also wrote down, we're on this fucking train and starting in 5 minutes. That
Yeah.
is, we are just
We're
in
just
it. And
like
it's a 2 hour movie
good
that
to
does
go.
not feel 2 hours. Yeah.
No, they break it up well, but you're right. It gives the way they frame it gives it a strong backbone of like this is all going to be tethered around this story, this family, this history, and there's going to be some vengeance involved inevitably. There's going to be some action involved inevitably. But the way it plays out, I mean, again, I've seen it 4 times now, so it's probably hard to tell exactly how I felt the first time. But I don't think that you expect it to go the way that it goes, right? Like I think you
Right.
do know that it's of course going to take place on a train. But you don't know how all these characters are going to weave together. And while I do think Brad Pitt is the common thread, and he's kind of like in terms of the various characters on the train who you begin with and you kind of end with, he I wouldn't even say he's the lead. He's just like the person taking us through the story. I mean, you're super engaged with him and he's very important and you're very invested in him. It's not to say he's not important, but they each carry so much of the story for such a good chunk of it, especially Lemon and Tangerine,
Yeah.
that I think you forget that he's the lead. You know what I mean? Like
He's the person who all the other characters are engaging with in some
right.
capacity, but
Yeah,
he's
the
such
common
a
thread for sure.
yeah, we find out at the end why he is being like he's kind of a patsy. But he's sort of just putzing around this train. You think I think if I watched the trailer for this, I would assume, oh, it's these assassins are getting on and he's an assassin and he's got to kill all of them and fight his way through the train. No, he's supposed to get on, take this case and fuck off.
Yeah.
He can't do that, obviously, and that's where this gets started. But I like that, by the end you figure out why exactly he was pulled into this. But to your point, Lemon and Tangerine, the first scene they have, they're going to steal this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're just immediately distracted by them. I mean, it's the second, like he just gets bumped with the food cart and you're like, oh, hello. Like, and it's just, they're immediately
and he just shoplifts.
Just
immediately.
He's like, I don't know.
Why did I do that?
Why did I do that? And I love that what did he say? They're like something flavored cookies. Are they tangerine flavored cookies?
Don't even want it.
I don't remember. He's like, I don't even want it. Like, why do I have to do that? And it's an interesting, I think the thing I like about that, it's so small and subtle, is that it's an interesting just character nugget for a guy who seems to be like the glue of this partnership, the type A of this partnership of like, I'm going to keep shit organized and together. And I'm like clean cut and I don't fuck around and I'm here to get business done and whatever. And he has this one thing that he can't like.
I'm also a klepto.
I'm also the klepto. I can't not steal random fucking biscuits on a train. It's such a gem. And then speaking of, Lemon's shtick is his Thomas the Tank obsession, and you got to get it right or he's going to be upset with you.
He always brings his stickers. I like that line.
I love that. He's like, how'd you bring the stickers? Always bring the stickers. And he says it with such like, obviously I brought the stickers. But I'm like, I so identify with that. It's like this weird, cute shtick about him that I love. And he's like, I live in this framework of Thomas and Friends, which is, by the way, the name of the show, in case you were curious. And he's like, everybody can fall into these characters. And what I think is so great and cute about that whole framework is that is what that show is built to teach you, right? Like this show is built to teach you who to watch out for and who's a good egg and like how to interact with each other. Like it is actually teaching you interpersonal skills. That is the point of this story. And that fucking resonated with this guy. And he is a full-blown adult deciding who's a Diesel and who's a Percy and who's a Thomas. And it's fucking hilarious.
And that's kind of, what all these different assassins, they all have their different motivations and they're all different. Some of them I feel like are kind of one note characters, but for the
Yeah.
most part, we see each of their backstories and it's interesting to see that.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that whole parallel is works on multiple levels. The second thing that I wrote down, and this ties into more of big picture what goes on in the film, but the cutaway sequences, which we mentioned at the outset of these multiple storylines, nonlinear
Hmm.
storytelling, it does help to break up the amount of time we're on the train. Because I think if we were just
Yes.
stuck on this train for 2 hours, I think
It would
these
drag. The pacing would feel weird. Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
And that very first one we get with them, where they're debating how many people they killed at this job. That is just, it's such brilliant, like a great way to break it up, to add a little bit of fourth wall breaking and add some humor right out of the gate.
And to add some more opportunity for action and stunts. Like that is what these
Yes.
guys love to do. This is what David Leitch and 87 North like to do, is like, let's show off our stunt skills and let's put it to good use. And it happens both on and off the train. And I think it also delineates like the train visuals from everything else, in that the stunts
Right.
change dramatically, right? You just have more space to work with. And it gives you a good cutaway in all those different snippets of, here's these totally different stunts. They also, fun fact, use different cameras and different film for different types of shots. So
That's clever.
on the train, you're sitting with these widescreen lenses here on the first few shots that you get, and when you get out of that, they're changing to a different lens, different film. So you have digital shots for all the train content, and all the current content is the way they said it. So anything that's in the present that's happening on this trip is one camera and one type of film. So, and then you have the wolf backstory, which is all done on actual film. It's the only non-digital one. So it was all done on film to give it a different look as well, and also different lenses. So he has a vision, and I think the way that they change the camera and the way that they change the shots helps break up the train. Like it looks like a
Yeah.
different story. It looks, obviously is a different place, but like everything about the shots is different, and it was very intentional.
Super creative, and I didn't know any of that stuff, but you notice it when you're watching the film of, this feels different. It wasn't
Right.
something that I had the thought enough to write down, but it definitely felt different while I was watching it. And David Litch, selfish stuntman as he is in one of the scenes, he is the civilian that blows up after the car chase. So he's like, I can't help myself. I have to be a stuntman. I have to do a stunt.
There's so
Yeah.
many directors like this too, that they're like, how do I put myself into this Easter egg? And he's like, how do I put myself into this stunt? He's like the combo of both.
David Litch has to be exploded. Quentin Tarantino must look at feet.
Oh my
That's like
God.
just the way it goes.
It is. That's the second time today I've had the foot fetish reference of Quentin Tarantino, by the way. Just fun
What was the
fact.
first?
Prime Cut. Our friends at Prime Cut were talking about this.
That's so their style.
It's
Lowbrow. Meanwhile, we're doing it here. So.
We're doing it too. We're doing great. We're doing great. But yeah, speaking of stunts, I think it's fun to call out a couple stunt things too while we're here, which is that Brad Pitt did 95% of his stunts, which I don't think this is the first time he's done a lot of his stunts, so that probably won't be surprising. But I thought it was funny, the ones that he didn't do, which I think speak a little bit to his light aging, as I would
I was
maybe
gonna
call it.
say, how old is he at this point? Is he in his? He's not in his 60s.
He's
What,
in his
50s?
50s. Yeah, I think he's in
Okay.
his 50s. But he didn't do the long running scenes with Man After My Own Heart. Like, I get it, Brad. I'm also not going to run.
Yeah,
And
you can't make me run.
you can't make me run. Unlike Tom Cruise, who's like, I will physically run in every fucking movie from now until I die.
You can't make me walk. Yeah.
Right. So he didn't run, but he also didn't do like hard falls, which just again felt to me of like,
I'm 40. I get it.
He's like, I'm done with those. But I love that he was interviewed about this, and they asked him if he got hurt, and he was like, no, I didn't get hurt. He's like, but Aaron Taylor Johnson and a couple of the other youngins, they got hurt. So he was like kind of jokingly swiping at the young kids who should be doing better. They're the ones who got hurt. Because Aaron Taylor Johnson did cut himself pretty bad, lost a chunk of his hand. It turned out like he just needed
But
stitches.
on like the glass breaking?
It was
like when he
on the
punches-
train where he like landed on the there was something uncovered on
Oh.
a seat that like stabbed into his hand apparently, and it took out a pretty good chunk, so he had to go get stitches. But he was on apparently what he said was mad keto diet, like really bad, mad keto diet, and he had such low blood sugar that when he started bleeding, he
Oh
passed out.
no. Jeez.
So, and he like woke up on the set and was like, "Should we go again?" And they're like, "Nah, bro, like you got to go get stitches and go to the hospital."
Thought it would have been funnier if he woke up and he was already in the hospital. He's like, "Should we go again?"
Should we go
No,
again?
you're in the
You're
hospital.
in the hospital, my dude. So yeah, they took their stunts seriously, I will say.
Yeah, the action in this, for I think mad respect to all the folks doing their own stunts in this. The action, it reminded me of a Jackie Chan film with Guy Ritchie cinematography. It is a mashup of those two things, I feel like.
It's so funny you say the Jackie Chan piece because the stunt coordinator, whose name I forget at this time, I'm sorry, said when interviewed about Brad Pitt that that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to have those Jackie Chan type of sequences and those tight space sequences, which he is obviously very well known for in some cases. And that's actually what they were channeling in a lot of Brad's fighting, of like they wanted him to be able to do all of those and make it look like that. And
Well,
so
whatever
it
your
came
name is
through.
out there that Mackenzie just insulted and
Oh.
complimented at the same time, it came across because I was sitting here like this feels like I'm watching a Jackie Chan movie from the 90s or early aughts, you know?
Yeah, 100%. You're doing great. And also his name is Greg Rementer. I saved it. I saved
Greg
it.
Dementor, we fixed it.
I didn't do that. He did that. I just want it on the
Yeah.
record.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
but
like
yeah, it came
all
through.
the fight scenes in this are incredibly well done.
Yeah.
It's again smart to mix it up and
Yeah.
have. Sometimes you run the risk of having too many characters, but I like how quickly some of the assassins are dispatched. Even when we get this full backstory for the wolf,
Yeah.
he dies real quick.
He does
But
so
we
quick.
get they make the most of it by having badass fight scenes between
Yes.
whoever it might be at any given time.
And I just love, there's a lot to be said too at various points, and it kind of ties to the fight scenes. But for me, like the overall aesthetic is really clean and nice. So it's like very Japanese in that sense of like clean train stations, clean aesthetics, clean like uh uh vending machines, and like you see the artwork even on the wall that makes a recurring appearance, right? The Momonga family animation is everywhere throughout. So it's like you get this really interesting and consistent aesthetic for all the Japanese scenes and the characters and the train and all of that. But you're right, like when you switch to any of these backstories, the aesthetic beyond just the shots changes entirely, and it's just a quick snippet in a lot of ways, but it contributes so much to like that character and that identity. And what I like
Yeah.
about the wolf is that that then bleeds into the scene. So like he's entering the Japanese scenes that have a very different aesthetic, but he is carrying his aesthetic from the prior scenes. Like he still has the same look and the same outfit and the same boots, and even the music is coming in with him. And it like you hear when the music shifts, it's like his entrance music, and then it blends into this other music when they're on the train. And I that was one of my notes too, is like the music is so well placed and timed and intentional in those ways as well. And I thought it was cool that the composer said he was like the music on this one was all vibes, not technique. And I thought that was interesting because it's not like, orchestral, incredible composition. It's like, it is energy, it is vibes, it is like what makes sense for this scene or that scene or what have you. And I think that comes through during those action sequences too.
I'm always a sucker when you get foreign language versions of songs that most of us, I don't
They're
want to call them American
covers.
songs, but English language songs that we all know and
Yeah.
recognize when they do the covers in different languages. I think that's always a little mark out moment for me. But you said, and I think it's kind of fucked up, you said he's coming in all bloody, and or like you mentioned blood in regards to the wolf, and it's kind of insensitive of you after the wedding he had. I wrote down, this is like the most literal red wedding. Fuck Game of Thrones.
I
This is the
mean,
red wedding.
I think it gives it for a run for its money. Certainly,
Yeah.
it's pretty brutal. Yeah, for sure. And I, I can't help but like looking at his suit. I'm like, is that wine or is that the blood?
I
Because
think that
he's
was
rubbing the wine,
wine
and
from
then
when Brad Pitt bumps into
right,
him, or Ladybug bumps into him, because then he shows up, sees his face, and looks down at
yeah,
the wine stain.
yeah, yeah.
Not to say he doesn't also have a ton of blood on him too from that.
But he's really good at placing him right away, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting because he immediately knows, like, oh, it was you. And And I also love that's the running gimmick throughout too, right? Of like everyone placing him and misplacing him too, right? Of
Yeah.
they recognize him or they think he did something that he didn't do. And he's the one guy on this train kind of trying not to fight anyone, but everybody has a beef with him for various reasons, whether they're real or imagined. And so
Even
fighting
even when
everybody off.
like he asks Lemon if he remembers shooting him twice,
And he's
and
like,
Lemon does he's no, you look like every white homeless man I've ever seen. Just
these
so it's
lines
like
are
you are
so
not remembered.
I just love his lines throughout. He's just like, yeah, he's so unimpressed by him. He doesn't react to him at all throughout. And he, I also love the like therapy language that Brad Pitt is consistently coming back with throughout, where he's just like, between us, there's a wall and we just need to work through it. And even his gestures, the way that he's talking with his hands while he's doing it, it's so hilarious. And he's just trying to bring things down. It's not working.
I, I wrote down we said it I said from the outset this isn't a perfect movie, and I there's a few things I don't, and the therapy stuff, it hits a like a point of diminishing returns for me by the end, where I
Mm-hmm.
feel like not leaning on it, but they wrote 3 to 4 too many jokes about it in the script. Of I get it, he's trying to be a better guy, but like I don't need every third quip of his to be in relation to the fact that he's in therapy. I
Became kind
will
of his
say
like
from a
only thing. Yeah.
yeah, I will say from a humor standpoint, that's one where I went, this is starting to wear thin, especially at sort of more intense moments. But
Yeah, I could see that. I mostly just took it as like he still can't give this analogy correctly because he keeps forgetting it and he keeps trying to do it. And then he, like, by the end, is finally getting to the analogy and getting it right. But it took him the whole fucking 15 battle sequences to get to it. But
it's,
I
yeah,
get it.
you're
I
right.
get
It
it.
makes sense in the context of the story that eventually it has a payoff of him learning an actual lesson from this elder who's been around and has a lot more life experience and shit to share. So
Yeah.
that does make some sense.
Also, I really love the elder while we're there. I just love his energy. He very much falls into a trope, a very archetypal type of
Yeah.
character, but he does it well and he's charming and he really leans in and he kind of reminds me, like, this is not at all the same film by any means, but he reminds me of Street Fighter, of just the like the full commit in the middle of this campy silly story, and he's like, no, I'm just gonna play this straight, like he's just playing it straight, he's
And the
playing it straight.
script makes it possible for like it to, that it's sort of out of place within this. I think him and the White Death both are kind of out of place, but
Yeah,
they make
they're
it
the
make
two
sense.
most intense characters,
Yeah.
and but part of the way they play it straight makes them like really act as a foil to the rest of everything else, to the rest of the action, and I think it makes it work.
When the elder says, "I'm going to tell you a story now," and Brad
Right,
Pitt's like,
and
"No, I'm good. Just we
that
don't
whole
need you in this
sequence.
script." But I like
He's
that bit
like, but
too.
I also like, he's like, no, it's really short. And he's like, no, I'm good. And he's
It's
like,
a good story for you.
okay, so back in the like
And he just
it just
starts.
keeps going.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's great. I think that they're very funny there. The action is really good. I like some of the various like we said, callback jokes and like the subtle references. I do like that they don't deep dive on every single person's backstory. Like we don't
Right.
really get a huge deep dive into the prince, even though she's very much a forward action driving force. Like we get allusions to it of she's like, you didn't pay attention to me and whatever, and but like you're not supposed to like her, so you're kind of not supposed to care about that backstory of why is she as shitty as she is. It doesn't really matter. She's just shitty. She's like a shitty
It's
bratty kid.
Yeah, it's explained with a little bit of exposition, but I think you're right. They want, and fucking A, I underestimated Joey King. I wasn't familiar with what she had going on, but she is so fucking hateable in this, and I love
Very good.
how just insane they make her. She
Yeah.
is pure sociopath, like
Yeah.
gets off on fooling people and killing people in this chaos
Yeah.
and this plan that she's built. So she crushes it. I think she's the most underrated part of this film.
She really, again, she's somebody who really commits, and she doesn't have to play it like dramatic straight like these other characters like the White Death and the Elder that we're talking about, but she plays it straight sociopath. Like she says crazy things and she looks totally committed to the bit, right? And then she's it's juxtaposed against her whole aesthetic, which is part of the story, but it's a
Yeah.
little bit meta in that way too, of you're like, she looks so cute and innocent in her adorable little pink outfit and her adorable little backpack. Meanwhile, she is carrying a bomb that she's ready to put in a suitcase to kill her father and to make sure that she's got a backup plan to kill her father because he didn't invite her to the table to be a criminal. Like it's just
It's also
it's
just
interesting.
it's infuriating as a viewer and it gets you roped into the movie when you're watching this evil maniacal person manipulate all the characters you do like. And I mean, eventually she gets Tangerine killed, right? Like
Yeah.
she gets him killed by sort of leaning on
Well,
trusting that Brad Pitt will save her and playing that role of helpless victim.
she just flips that switch again, which she's done
Yeah.
multiple times, and some people buy it and some people don't. And that's one of the things I love about Lemon is, again, he keeps
Sees through the
referencing
bullshit.
Tom in the Tank, but like he can fucking read people, and he says that he's like, I'm never wrong, and he can tell very quickly that she's the Diesel. And I love that moment of him identifying her and being like, there's something just not fucking right about you, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
he can just feel it in his gut. And but she can, again, because she's a fucking sociopath, she can just flip it on, and Brad immediately just thinks he needs to protect her. And unfortunately we lose Tangerine, which, fun fact, not fun fact, sad fact, he didn't know that Lemon wasn't gonna die, because in the original script Lemon was gonna die. They were both gonna die. And so when he gives that performance, like the director has said, I just thought it was so incredible, and we're glad we didn't tell him at the time that Lemon wasn't going to die, because it felt so genuine that they were both
You
going to
ride an
die.
emotional wave in this,
Yeah.
especially I think that again when the stakes start to hit, when you think that Lemon has died and Kimura has died, it's like, oh shit's getting real. And obviously end up coming back, but we do get the real death of Tangerine. To go back to when we talked about foreshadowing earlier, I like the conversation they have early in the film where he says, are you wearing your bulletproof vest? It's like, no, like they seem like a false sense of security. What if I get shot in the neck? That's
Mm-hmm.
how Tangerine dies.
Right.
And the bulletproof saves Lemon's life. I
Yeah.
couldn't confirm this part because I didn't go back and rewatch it, but I saw some folks on Reddit saying that if you watch closely, the first time that Lemon is passed out on the table, Tangerine comes back, checks on him, and then the next time we see Tangerine, he doesn't have his tie on and his shirt is unbuttoned. So the theory is that he took off his bulletproof vest and put it on his brother to protect him, and that's what eventually ends up saving Lemon's life. So I thought that was, if that is true, that's pretty cool.
I think that is it, because you see it very like unbuttoned later, and I
Yeah.
do think he genuinely wasn't going to put it on, right? And I think he's equally surprised when he looks down as well. So I could see that making a lot of sense as well. Like it plays from their performances and also a couple of those little nuggets. But I kind of thought, I was a little bit torn when I was reading that Lemon was supposed to also die. I was a little bit like, I don't know, was he supposed to die? I feel, because they're twins, and they're like, and I just
Yeah.
love that running bit throughout the film as well, of like, are they twins? Of course they're twins. Everybody knows they're twins. They don't look anything alike. They're twins, which, by the way, there are rare occurrences of mixed race twins to mixed families, so it's totally possible. And they're like, obviously they're fucking twins, and I love that that's that running bit. But also twins are like this, you know? And so I was a little bit sad when I realized that. I was like, it feels like they're separated. I like that you get some of the ending with Tangerine the way that you do, but or it with Lemon the way that you do, but it's really sad at the end of it where he's alone.
I like
know?
that they gave, I think people are mixed on the after credits scene. Well, I guess they're not mixed on that. They're mixed on just having Prince be killed by a truck. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's the comeuppance, just getting hit by a truck. I think the after credits scene or mid credits scene adds to the intrigue of that, where it is Lemon who's driving the truck. And I think that's, it's like, hey, that gives us our hell yeah moment where he's avenging his brother in some way. But I understand why some
Because it's
people would
Lemon
want a
and
more fitting
Tangerine
death.
still in its own way.
Yes. I get why some people would want a more fitting death, I guess, for Prince as opposed to just hit by truck.
I don't know. I don't really care about her death. I think also
Hmm.
you're not supposed to. Well, at least for me, that was my read of like she's like a gnat. You know what I mean? Like she is this annoying gnat throughout this story. And yes, she has a lot of impact on the story. I'm not saying that. But this is just her being a brat and fucking throwing a tantrum, truly, throughout. And so when she's fucking run over by a truck, it's like, great, finally, I'm done with it. Like I don't even have to look at her anymore. I don't have to think about her anymore. I was very ready to be done with her, and I don't really care how. But yeah, I could see people wanting more satisfaction from that, but I was very fine with it.
Yeah, it also ties into this entire movie. I mean, you are not supposed to take this movie seriously
Yeah.
from the outset. The sequence, the action sequences when Brad Pitt is being attacked with a knife and is just sort of like making quips and like, no, let's talk, let's not. I don't really worry. Like this is meant to be very silly in so many ways, but that and the movie throughout does talk about how this is just a string of, we find out it's not all coincidence, right? But for the most part these people are connected through all these interwoven events, and we talk
Yeah.
about fate, and luck is referenced throughout, good and bad luck. So I think even if we didn't have the post credits, it's like, oh, she got hit by a truck, that's bad luck, like finally she got some bad luck. It would have made sense. And I think it's also, I didn't confirm this either, but I think the same truck that she's hit by is the one that almost hits Brad Pitt at the start of the movie when he steps off the
They
curb.
do say that, but I also feel like this is a bullet train. How is that possible? Like drive
Maybe
time
it was a
wise.
bullet truck. We don't know that. Or
They
maybe it
do
got
say
on a
it's the same
bullet
truck
plane.
though, yes. So
Yeah.
oh, but I had that question. I was like, I'm just curious, like how would it physically get there? But I do like we come, we go through this whole battle, the various battles. The stunts are great. The music is great to complement those action sequences. I like the drama of the ending, and then the train crashes, which is, by the way, something that is different from the book. Supposedly, it doesn't crash in the book. But of course, the like, we see how lucky Ladybug is, and I just love that that's also a running theme through this book of he, or this movie, where he thinks that he is unlucky, but it really is him having a lot of luck packaged in these shitty situations of like, fate didn't want you to step out on that, and get run over by that truck, or didn't want this to happen, so it protected you. And it seems like an inconvenience. It seems like something annoying, but actually, really, at the end of the day, it was all lucky. I mean, the venom is a great example, right? Like, what are the
I
odds?
love that.
I love that moment. He's like, you would not believe this, but I already have had a dosage of anti-venom today.
Yeah, I
So
love, we didn't touch on like the Hornet stuff, like her fight scene with Ladybug, and it's again so quick. She's in the movie with
she's
the head
barely
off for
in
like
there.
3 minutes. But I love the shot, like the needle falling down into his hand, him freaking out, but then
Yeah.
immediately stabbing her with all of it.
Yeah.
And that standoff where you got 30 seconds and his is passing
Yeah.
faster than hers, but it's kind of like waiting for her to make a move. I love that. And then when he's like, you don't have a backup? Do you have another one? So you only brought one? That,
And
it's great.
the I'm mansplaining again. I shouldn't mansplain. Like
Yeah.
I just love
Yeah.
that. But then yeah, you jump to him like flying through the train, like somehow landing up against the Hornets, like, I don't know, furry. How else would we describe it? And
It's like a Japanese mascot. I don't know that you can have sex in that outfit. I think that's a requirement for furries.
I guess
We'll
that's
go to a
true.
convention sometime. We'll figure it out.
We'll find out. We'll do the recon and let y'all know
Yeah.
what we decide. But yes, he runs into the mascot that cushions his fall from a crazy train crash. And the best part is like, he's fine, the elder's fine, the son is fine. And then, of course, the White Death comes walking out with the fucking samurai sword through his arm. And you're like, are we so for real
He's
right now?
lucky. He's so lucky. I wrote down that as this train, again, if you wanted any sign that you were not supposed to take this movie seriously, this train just went through an entire town, killing many, many people. But
And
our lucky characters survive, and 5 minutes later, Brad Pitt's making poop jokes. So, like, no, you were not meant to take this seriously.
literally making poop jokes, which like your girl hates a poop joke. Like I am not. I don't think it's interesting. And what did he say? Ball pointing? I'm ball pointing. I was like,
Yeah. You
that's
didn't like the literal toilet humor in this, though? Apparently, that was Brad Pitt's idea, too. Let's have jokes about these fancy toilets in Japan. And I think the first scene is kind of funny when
the
he's getting,
first
when
scene. I
he's
think is
drying
funny.
it,
Like
but
it's gross. Don't get me wrong. The like, if I had
yeah,
one in the chamber, I would use this bad boy right now or
yeah.
whatever. Like it's funny. It's gross, but it's funny. But yeah, the ball pointing at the end was a touch too far for me. me. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm all done with this. But I love their dynamic, him and Maria, of like, she has been literally holding his hand throughout this. And there are so many times where I'm like, bruh, why are you calling her this entire time? You're in the middle of fight sequences. Like, she's talking you out of everything. And she's just calm, cool, collect on the other side of the phone, just being like, what are you doing? Get off the train. Could you do me a solid and get off the train? Could you grab the gun? Could you do this? And she just shows up where the train happens to crash, by the way, and is there to just save him and offer him a banana because he needs potassium. And I was like,
they show some
okay.
flashbacks at the end of her talking
While
to him from
traveling
the
to him.
other end to get across the point that it was Sandra Bullock the whole time, everybody. And I think they had actually filmed all that with every intention of showing their back and forth dialogue, like showing her on camera throughout the film. But test audiences rejected that because they thought that meant she would actually figure into the movie more strongly at some point. She would show up and help him. And when she just sort of turns up at the end, people were disappointed. So they went, well, let's just have it be her voice until the end. And then when they used all this footage they had already shot to give you the flashback.
I think that was more impactful, putting it at the end.
I
don't
agree.
think you need it throughout. I think it would have maybe fucked with the pacing a little bit, actually.
Yeah, and I probably would have made the same assumption because I don't think I mean I knew I recognized the voice the first time I saw it, and
You didn't know it was Sandra Bullock immediately?
I don't think I did when I was watching it. Maybe I just didn't care enough about like, oh, I need to know who this is. I just was like, oh, there's a voice on the other side of the phone. Okay,
I did not need to look it up. I was like, it's Sandy. We love Sandy.
Sandy B.
Yeah, she's great. But I liked her voice for this. I thought it was a good voiceover throughout, and I liked that they did come together at the end, and it was just like a quick little cameo. But it was that last scene again is I think all the indicator you need that you're not supposed to take this whole thing seriously, like we said, because it's just wildly unrealistic.
I wrote down after the crash and it going through this town and killing hundreds, maybe thousands. I wrote, well, at least no one important got hurt because our main characters are still fine.
They're fine. Everybody else, they were just all, they were off at school that day, or they were off at somewhere else. Everybody else.
Everyone was at the zoo.
Everyone was at the zoo.
But I wrote that last sequence, honestly, the last 10 minutes might be my least favorite part of the film. And I'm not saying it's terrible.
But it's the weakest link. I agree. I was going to say that.
The crash, and maybe and I wrote down, I'll give it a bit of a pass because we already talked through budget and having to make this on a soundstage and potentially green screen. I assume a lot of this stuff. So I get why the crash doesn't look as good as it probably could. But that, and then just the final showdown is okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
But maybe I wanted more.
I think what I wanted was, I don't know that the crash was totally necessary. Like, I'm fine with a big explosion or whatever. I just don't know that the story needed it to come to a conclusion and to even have that same face off. So it's actually a little bit distracting because of all the effects and the things. And then Lemon jumping out and you're like, are we so for real right now? And then he's fine. And like, again, the things that I would maybe change if I had a choice was, I don't think we need the crash. I think you can have that showdown at the last stop or whatever.
Agreed.
And I also think that Lemon maybe could have died and it would have been more poetic, like that the brothers have died together. At least for me a little bit. I was like, I love him. I love them both. I don't want either of them to die. But if they're gonna die, it feels a little bit like they should do it together for me. It was very sweet and it was very brotherly to protect him and save him in that way. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful in its own way, but those would maybe be the two things that I would like. I think that it could have been a little better if they had changed those.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I've called out all my sort of nitpicks of the things I didn't like. But the humor in this, for the most part, lands. That's the last thing I'll double tap on. Is just, I love the bit where they're pretending to be twins. The guys say, yes, you do look like twins. But then he's talking back and forth. Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Tangerine is talking back and forth with the henchmen, and they both have accents. And then Brad Pitt says, so no one gets Grady, and spins the combo in the worst accent of all time. And it just opens. Such a great bit. It is a
good bit, and he does a terrible accent, and it's like fine in that context because it's supposed to be, but he's historically like pretty bad at accents. So it checks out. I do think that the humor like really comes through. I love all the little adages that he says, not just the ones that are like therapy-y, but like when you point a finger at someone, there's three fingers, four fingers. He's like trying to figure it out mid-fight, pointing it back at you. I think that's funny. I also like there was the part where he says, I don't know, something witty. And I just feel like that's also just such a screenplay reference of like, I have been
Yeah.
writing the shit out of this movie and like, I don't have another witty one liner in me. So, witty, whatever, insert
If you
here.
told me that Shane Black had a hand in writing this, I would believe you. Again, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice
Yeah.
Guys. That kind of meta in a way humor where
Right.
it's the script is just imperfect enough to be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. And I love that they're just little nuggets of like, someone paid to have the kid killed with his own ransom. Like, that's dark. And it's referencing its own work in the middle of the
Yeah.
story in a bunch of ways that I think are really funny. So, yeah. And then I think the last one we briefly touched on, but like the whole flow of the water bottle and the water bottle's experience
Gets
was
its own cutaway.
it gets
Yeah.
its own cutaway. It's so
Again,
cute. It's so
super meta.
clever.
Yeah.
And you feel for this little water bottle getting thrown all around. And at least I did. So I don't know. I did. Yeah. I thought it was a great time. And again, it's not perfect to your point. I think there's a few things we could change. But overall, I think it's a really fun watch. So what would your rating be?
Well, before I give my rating, I would like to, if I may, read a 1-star review from IMDb.
No.
So,
I mean, yes, you may, but
I don't agree with this.
Wow. Wow.
And I'm not going to get rid of any typos. I'm just going to read them as they appear. But this made me laugh when I was
Wait, so
going
no
through.
punctuate? Like, does it have shitty punctuation? You're just gonna blow
There
through
is one. There are 3 periods throughout, and it's all 1 ellipses. The rest of it is a run-on sentence. So,
it? Okay, you have to read it like a run on. Is what I'm saying. Go.
yes. Okay. 1 star out of 10. This movie was made. Okay, this is the title. This movie was made just a huge selfie for Brand Pitt. Okay, here comes the actual review. Bad humor with beyond bad acting. Just a film with cringe lines. It looks like this was made just for Brad Pitt's ego, an attempt for himself to stay re-elevate, trying too hard to make himself look cool, as if he wanted every take to make him look cool. The acting is so bad. The script is so boring and stupid. It actually makes all the effects and cinematography effort go down the drain. Really boring to watch. You get nothing out of this film. I didn't even have to laugh once. ... ellipses. This is by far the worst film yet starring Brad Pitt. Make me made I wasted my time watching this since it has fake high ratings. I actually nailed that word for word. So if you thought I mispronounced anything, go to IMDb because I fucking crushed that.
Wow. Do you need a can of oxygen? Are you
Yeah, I'm gonna
okay?
take a little sip.
Whew. The
then let me get into
punctuation, sir.
Just,
Jesus.
yeah, grammatical nightmare. Anyway,
Wow.
I
Well,
will
that was
say
incredible. But yes, hit us with your review.
I'll say 4th watch, maybe not as good as the first time. When I know what's coming, some of the middle is not as perfect as I remember it being. And like I said, the last 10 minutes are always just like, we need to wrap this thing up. And it doesn't do it in the most creative manner. But the first time I watched this, I probably would have given it 8.5. I had such a fucking blast. So if you've never seen this, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Multiple watch later, I would probably say it's probably sitting at a 7.5 for me. I just think it's so much fun. I will definitely rewatch it again at some point. It might give it a little bit longer of a gap than I did last time, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd probably give it a little bit longer of a gap. We just happened to do it and I had seen it not that long ago, so I think that's also part of it. I agree with you, but yeah, I think same. On the first watch, I would have probably said like a hard 8.5. I think I'd probably still sit at an 8 because I'm still just like laughing and having a good time, and aesthetics are really beautiful. And then, just doing a little bit more of the research that I did, I'm like, oh, there's so much intention to this, and there's so many great references here, and I think the performances are really solid, and the things that aren't perfect are like, they're still fine, they're just not perfect. And I had forgotten about the water bottle sequence until today, so that was really enjoyable. So yeah, I think I'd sit at a solid 8. I think it's really a fun watch, and I just again have learned throughout this process that I love a fucking action movie, and I also love his action movies. I think he does a really good job, and this production team does a really good job of putting on just a good show, a good funny show.
Yeah, one thing I mentioned was that I feel like the number of actors are few and far between that could have pulled off this role, where it's
Yeah.
kind of an action role, it's kind of a comedy role, but you have to be very likable but still be taken seriously, and you got to do this whole therapy bit. And
Yeah.
I just feel like they could have miscast this in so many different ways, but I feel like it basically had to be Brad Pitt. Some of the lines of dialogue, I don't know who else could have pulled this off.
I think he did a really good job, and I think he's like he's a certain kind of funny is what I would say. I agree with you. Like he's a different kind. He's not gonna play it straight funny. He's not a straight up comedic actor, but he has the right kind of humor for this role. Totally
Yeah.
agree. Awesome. Well, okay. Thanks for joining, fam. This was a great, fun month for me. So thanks for giving us an excuse to do all these. This was a fun time. I
We
think
had talked about how we hadn't really done that much action on the
Yeah.
pod, so I'm glad we knocked out 5 in a row.
Yeah, we got to get. I mean, I think we just interspersed them and just didn't realize like how much opportunity there was in this genre. So this may be like a recurring April thing. Who knows? It was a good time. But what will not be a recurring thing is we are going to have a special May. So as you all may know, if you're fans of the pod, we did anime as an animation last year. We're not going to do that this year. We're going to actually spend the month of May celebrating the career of one Mr. Val Kilmer, who, as you may have heard, passed recently. But the reason we came to this, and again, this is not going to be a recurring thing. We don't want to like set the stage for that. But the reason this occurred to us is we've referenced a lot of his films in other conversations on the pod, none of which we have covered. So we keep talking about it.
We did one, 60 minutes ago?
65
minutes ago.
So like we need to spend some time talking about his films. I think it was a good opportunity. So come back next week and for the whole month of May for us to talk through a few of Val Kilmer's films, and we're going to kick things off with The Doors. So
now, I've never seen The Doors, and this was one of the first in like the 5 or 10 you sent. It was pretty up there on the list.
Yeah.
What do I need to know about The Doors, and why do you recommend it to our listeners before we kick off Val month?
Oh my God, I have to send you like a whole other text. Like, have you ever listened to The Doors?
Yes, I am familiar with their.
Well, I don't mean
records.
like are you like, do you like them? Do you like know any of their?
Yeah, I know.
Stuff?
I would say probably between 10 and 15 Doors songs.
Okay, that's solid. I think you're ahead of the game. I think you'll be fine. You know, like it's a biopic, and you're going to go into the depths of that experience of being the Doors at their prime. And he does a really good job of playing this character. That's part of why I sent you the list that I did, was like, we want to show some variety, like his range. I think that's the thing, is he has more range than I think people realize. Okay, so we're going to start with The Doors, and we're going to go into Tombstone, for which we might have a special guest. As you guys may recall, Lamar's not super into Western, so Mackenzie maybe needs some backup. But then we're going to do, this is the out of left field one, MacGruber. And
I am so excited for that because I feel like you're going to hate it, but it's such a guilty pleasure. I know it's a dumb movie, but I laugh my ass off when I watch MacGruber.
Well, and you gave me an out, and I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Like, if you really love it and you think it's a good time, let's give it a shot. It historically does not seem, I should say, like my kind of humor, but I have not seen it. So TBD, we will see. And then we're going to close things out with something we have talked about only 572 times on the pod out of 80 episodes. Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang. So
it'd be nice to check that one off. I feel like we did Boondock Saints last month, or this month we're doing Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So we're getting to the ones that we mentioned the most.
Yeah, it was time. It was just time. So anyways, come back in May to listen to that. And we're going to start off with The Doors. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things. Instagram, the TikTok that's collecting dust. We've started uploading our shorts, thanks to Mackenzie, onto YouTube. So feel free to check those out and share them if you haven't seen our reels elsewhere before. You can also always email us at wedrinkandwewatchthingspod@gmail.com with thoughts, opinions, how excited you are for MacGruber, all that good stuff.
I'm sure we're going to get 20 emails about MacGruber excitement. I don't
think 20 people are going to listen to the MacGruber episode.
Listen, if I don't have to do it, no, I'm just kidding. I'm interested
Heyo.
to see how it goes. But for now, guys, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.
I had downed mine. I have no cheersies.